As Dylan and I packed our belongings, the weight of the years of mistreatment seemed to lift with each box. We had endured so much, and now we were determined to start anew, free from the manipulations and disrespect that had become a constant presence in our home. The old house, where our eldest son had grown up, had been a symbol of family, but now it felt like a burden. We could no longer stand the selfishness and cruelty we had tolerated for so long. I remember the day we handed over the keys. It was a bittersweet moment, as we watched strangers move into the house that had once been full of life and love. But in my heart, I knew it was for the best. We were no longer tied to the past, and the future was wide open. Dylan and I spent the next few months focused on creating a new life for ourselves. The monthly rental apartment was a temporary solution while we waited for our new home to be completed. It was small and simple, but it felt like a sanctuary after the years of stress. We found joy in the little things, sharing meals, laughing together, and looking forward to the future. Despite everything, we were still a family, and we had each other. Our younger son, who had been supportive through all the turmoil, visited us often, bringing his children and filling the space with warmth and laughter. We cherished those moments, knowing that our bond was stronger than any hardship. When the new house was finally ready, it was everything we had dreamed of and more. It was designed with our future in mind, a single-story, accessible home that would serve us well in our later years. It was a place of peace and comfort, a far cry from the chaos and resentment that had defined our old life. The day we moved in was one of the happiest days of our lives. The house felt like a fresh start, a new chapter filled with hope and possibility. As Dylan unpacked his calligraphy supplies and began planning his first class, I felt a sense of contentment I hadn't known in years. We were free from the toxic presence of our eldest son and his wife, and our days were filled with quiet joy. Then, just as we were settling into our new life, a shock came when our eldest son and his wife showed up at our doorstep. They had somehow tracked us down, despite our efforts to keep our new address private. Standing there, bags in hand, they demanded to know why we had sold the house and moved without consulting them. They even had the audacity to say they were entitled to live in our new home. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything they had done to us, after the way they had treated me when I was sick, they still thought they had a right to our home. Dylan and I stood our ground, telling them firmly that they had no place in our new life. They were no longer our responsibility, and we had no intention of letting them disrupt our peace. It wasn't long before their true nature revealed itself. Our neighbors, who had witnessed their arrival, were just as shocked as we were by their sense of entitlement. Despite their protestations, we didn't back down. Leon, our second son, had already shown up with his family, and it seemed they were in agreement that Luke and his wife had overstayed their welcome. The visit ended as quickly as it began. Luke and his wife, frustrated by our refusal to accommodate them, eventually left. But this wasn't the end of the drama. Soon after, we received a message asking for money, an even bolder request considering everything that had transpired. Dylan and I had had enough. We firmly told them that we would never lend them money again and that they were on their own. A few days later, we received a call from our security company. Luke and his wife had attempted to break into our house through a window. It was a desperate move, and while they were caught and reprimanded, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness for them. How had it come to this? Since then, they have stopped attempting to contact us, and we've blocked their numbers. It's been a relief to finally rid ourselves of the constant stress they caused. As for Luke, our second son Leon informed us that he had borrowed money from loan sharks and was now trying to evade them. We didn't have the energy to feel sorry for him anymore. He had made his choices, and now he would have to live with the consequences. As for us, we've moved on. Dylan now teaches calligraphy classes from our new home, and the peaceful rhythm of our life has become something we cherish deeply. When Jasper and his family visit, the grandchildren enjoy learning calligraphy with us, and we feel surrounded by warmth and love. It's a life we never imagined we'd have, but one we're so grateful for. Our days are now filled with quiet moments, laughter, and a deep sense of contentment. Free from the toxic forces that once plagued us, we've found peace, and we intend to hold on to it. I switched the phone to speaker mode, and in a low, calm voice, Dylan addressed our eldest son. "Go ahead, tell the police. I'll tell them too. You and your wife threw beer at your sick mother and then went off on a vacation abroad, all while forcing her to do housework when she was ill. Who do you think is the bigger sinner here, you or us, for disposing of your things?" His words, sharp and cold, hung in the air like a challenge. Dylan's expression, stern and unwavering, made him seem almost like a villain to anyone watching, but to me, it was a necessary confrontation, a culmination of years of pain and disappointment. Ignoring Dylan's words, our son continued to protest, his voice rising. This has nothing to do with that. What about selling the house? Where are we supposed to live now? Where are you even staying? His words felt like a slap, but Dylan didn't flinch. With quiet authority, he responded, "That house was originally ours. It's our right to sell it. And as for you, you're no longer our son. Don't contact us anymore." With that, he ended the call. 2 weeks later, we received a call that our new house was completed. Dylan and I were overjoyed. The moment we had been waiting for had finally arrived. We drove over, eager to see it for the first time. The call had come from the carpenter, a longtime friend of Dylan's, who had overseen the project. He was there waiting for us and gave us a tour of the house, explaining the layout. Designed as a single-story home with accessibility in mind for our later years, it exceeded our expectations in beauty and practicality. We felt so grateful to the carpenter and his team, who had worked so hard to make our dream home a reality. "Georgia really helped us out back in the day," the carpenter said humbly. "This is the least we could do." Dylan and I settled into our new house with a sense of peace and fulfillment. It was more comfortable than we had ever imagined, and life felt serene without the constant stress of our eldest son and his wife around. We had a quiet routine, free from their demands and manipulations, and we relished every moment. But about a month after we had moved in, our eldest son and his wife showed up at our door, unannounced. Neither Dylan nor I had shared our new address with them, and neither had our younger son, Luke, but it was clear they had hired a detective to track us down. Luke, holding large bags, stepped forward with a defiant look on his face. "Hey, it's not fair that you sold the house, got rid of our stuff, and moved into this nice place by yourselves," he declared. "As your eldest son, I have the right to live here, don't I?" Dylan and I were stunned. We had no idea how to respond to such entitlement. Just then, our neighbors approached from the back of the house, likely overhearing the confrontation. "What are you doing here?" Dylan exclaimed, anger rising in his voice. "How dare you show up and try to take over our home?" But Luke wasn't deterred. "From today, we're living here too," he said, preparing to step inside. Before Dylan could say anything else, the front door opened. "Hey, Luke, what are you doing here?" It was Leon, our second son, with his wife and their 2 young children. They had come to visit, as they had heard our new house was ready. Leon was surprised to see his brother and sister-in-law standing at the door. As they stood in the doorway, Leon, ever the peacemaker, asked, "Are you here to cause trouble again?" He then turned to Luke and his wife and said, "Why don't you stay for a bit? But I won't let you stay forever." Luke and his wife seemed caught off guard, but with no choice, they accepted. The tension hung in the air as they all went inside, and everyone gathered in the living room. Luke and his wife slouched on the sofa, looking tired. "I'm tired," Luke groaned. "Can I have some coffee, mother-in-law? I like it black." His casual tone and expectations left Leon's wife momentarily stunned, but she quickly made the coffee. It was clear that they felt no need to contribute or help out. Soon after, the grandchildren, raised by Leon's wife to be responsible and independent, approached Luke and his wife with their usual curiosity. "Why can't you do things yourselves?" one of them asked innocently. "Even I can pour my own juice." The questions continued to pour in. "Why can't you cook? Why don't you clean up after yourselves?" "My mom and dad always do," they said, looking at Luke and his wife with confusion. Luke and his wife, clearly uncomfortable, tried to argue back at first, but the relentless questions from the children were too much. By the end of the week, both Luke and his wife were visibly exhausted, especially his wife. She bristled when one of the children innocently called her Auntie. "Don't call me Auntie," she snapped, trying to keep her composure, but when the child asked why not, saying she wasn't young enough to be called sister, Luke's wife was left speechless. Even Leon and I couldn't help but laugh at her reaction. After Jasper and his family left, we kindly asked Luke and his wife to leave as well. They had been worn out by the children's incessant questions and were eager to go. They left without much fuss, but it wasn't long before they reached out again. This time, they were asking us to lend them money. It was outrageous. After all the food and shelter we had provided, they were still asking for more. Luke, with his part-time job at the convenience store, had always managed to get by, but his wife showed no interest in finding work. They had no savings, And instead of taking responsibility for their own expenses, they kept relying on others. We firmly told them we would never lend them money again. "We can't keep doing this for you," we said before blocking Luke's number. A few days later, while Dylan and I were away, we received a call from our home security company. Luke and his wife had tried to break into our house through a window. It was pathetic. Desperation had driven them to this low point. They were caught by security and later reprimanded by the police. We were shocked by their audacity but knew that we had to cut them off completely. From that day on, they stopped trying to contact us. Our second son Leon informed us that Luke had borrowed money from loan sharks and was now trying to evade them. "You brought this on yourself," Leon told Luke when he asked him for money. "Deal with your own debts." Leon, too, blocked his number. As for Dylan and me, we've moved on. We no longer allow the toxic presence of our eldest son and his wife to affect our lives. My husband now teaches calligraphy classes from our new home, providing a peaceful environment for creativity and learning. When Jasper and his family visit, the grandchildren enjoy learning calligraphy together, forming friendships and creating lasting memories. We cherish these quiet, tranquil days and are grateful for the peace we have finally found.